That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. I am Sid Part 2, and got a lot of stuff to go through tonight, so we will begin very shortly here. Just want to give people a little bit of time to get here. I am starting a little bit earlier than I normally do. What can I talk about in the meantime? Oh, I got this shirt while I was on my honeymoon a couple months ago. I just haven't had the chance to wear it yet, so come play with us forever and ever and ever. Oh, The Shining. Such a good film. What else going on? For those that were unaware that watched Geeky Gentleman, Rasco's taken a brief hiatus from just internet stuff in general. So he's not going to be on the show for at least the next couple of months. So filling in for him on the weekly basis will be the Comics Kid 2099. And for the fan film reviews, The Real Manos will be joining me for those interested. What else can I do announcements about? Let's see here. Where's it at? I don't have it in here, do I? Damn it. The Flash by Jeff Johns, Book 2. For those of you, since you like comic reviews, for those of you that want to hear my thoughts on The Flash Volume 2 by Jeff Johns, I did an episode of Geeky Gentleman with Jacob Carlson that was posted earlier this week. You can go check that out. We'll be doing Book 3 upcoming. We already did Book 1, so there's plenty of the Flash stuff to check out if anyone's interested in that. We also did the Grant Morris and Mark Millar run. So, you know, plenty out there in the world. Otherwise, I don't know if I have much else to announce. Just say that this week's Geeky Gentleman fan film review will be posted tomorrow on Batman vs. the Secret Six, The Demon in the Dark is the name of that fan film, so you can check that out in preparation for tomorrow's episode. And then later this week, the normal episode of Geeky Gentleman will be on our most anticipated films of 2018. So plenty to look forward to, plenty to do on the channel here, but you're probably just here for the comic reviews. And if you sat through all this after the fact and just start sitting there going, "What? Get to the reviews, I don't care about your live audience," well, you could come live, or you could realize that there are links down in the description that take you right to whatever book you want to hear me talk about. Anyway, let's go ahead and discuss what we'll be discussing tonight. We'll be talking about Superman number 38, which is The Super Sons of Tomorrow, Part 4. The Flash number 38, the conclusion to Cold Day in Hell. Mr. Miracle number 6. Daredevil number 597. Darth Vader number 10. And Wonder Woman number 38 for all the single-issue monthly books this week. And then for Trade Talk this week, we are continuing our series on No Man's Land and discussing Batman: The Road to No Man's Land, Volume 1. Okay. Let's see. I got Robert Emmett in the comments. Hi, Robert. And he says, "What are your thoughts on the Vision hardcover? It looks beautiful, but I've already bought the trades, and I'm not letting myself do it. If someone wants to buy me the Vision hardcover in exchange for my old trades, just so I'll do a review on the hardcover specifically, I will accept that. But I can't justify buying the trades and then buying the hardcover. And yes, I wish I had waited. I did not realize they were going to release a deluxe edition. Damn. Anyway. Welcome to Robert Emmett, Akuma Ranger, and whoever else is lurking, since there are 3 of you, but only 2 have commented. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started on books this week and talk about Superman number 38, The Super Sons of Tomorrow, Part 4. So this is the big crossover that's been going on with Super Sons that I got really excited about, and it's almost over. The conclusion is in the next issue, and ultimately it's not bad, but I don't want to sound like it's a bad story or it's like not a good story or anything, because I do think it's a good story. It's a well told story, but the tease that set it up in Super Sons was so much more what I wanted than what this is. Like you showed future Damien, and the arc is called Super Sons of Tomorrow. I want to see future Damien and future John. And they showed up once outside of that first issue, just in like a flashback. That's just disappointing. There's no way around it. That is just fundamentally disappointing. So it just kind of like undercuts anything else you're doing, unless they show up in the conclusion somehow or another. But for right now, it is just nowhere near as interesting as I'd hoped it'd be. And like just describing the plot, it is so ridiculous. Someone asked me at work today what I was reading, and I said Superman number 38. That's an addition to this big crossover story between a bunch of the books right now. And they go, "Oh, what's it about?" And I'm like, well, a future version of a former Robin has come from a different timeline into the past of another timeline in order to kill Superman's son. And someone looked at me and go, "That is the most comic book plot I could ever think of." And I'm like, yeah, it is very much a comic book. And I like that it's not ashamed of that. It's really taking that whole ridiculous over-the-top comic bookiness and embracing the hell out of it to just tell this story. And, you're getting a lot of what you want to see from something like this. At least I feel so, because, the former Teen Titans actually get to show up and, do something. And it's kind of cool. And there's no, like, discussion of, like, who are you? What's this? Like, it comes up briefly, but they don't spend just pages and pages talking about it. It just kind of happens, which is really, really refreshing as hell. So, like, when Connor and Bart Allen and Cassie Wonder Woman show up, man, that's just satisfying. When they show up, and, like, what I really like about it is they just start, like, giving orders to some of the other team members because they're just used to that. I thought that was pretty cool, and it was a lot of fun to see that in here. And then there was another great moment, like, just as, kind of like a longer-term comic book fan, of Connor in the Superman suit with Clark going to save Jonathan Kent. Like, they decide to go do it together. I really like this moment of dialogue. We have to save him. I failed him once, so I won't do it again. We do it together. So what's the plot of this? Now I spoiled the biggest moment in it. Starfire, Aqualad, and Kid Flash find Damian and John and try to convince them to, calm down. There's like a fight between them all. It's like, that typical misunderstanding, so we gotta solve this problem with our fists kind of fight. And then that fizzles out in a way that I really, really like, where John wants to trust these guys. So he tells them, well, we'll go to the safest place I know, which is the Fortress of Solitude. And Damien's like, hell no, we ain't doing that. That's a terrible idea. And then John's just like, yeah, we're going. Just knocks Damien the fuck out. God, that's a great panel sequence right there. Damien's all like shouty and stuff, and John's just like, okay, we're going. And then, I don't know, I like that. And then they get to the Fortress of Solitude. They find Superman in the container that Tim Drake put him in, the Red Kryptonite container. The shock of seeing his father, like, taking away from him and all this other stuff is sending John into this supernova emotion kind of thing where he can't control his powers, or solar flare, whatever they call it. It's a new Superman power. Can't control his powers, so he's about to explode, and then everyone basically has to work together to stop him. So there's just, like, a lot of really cool art. Like, I love this shot of Superman shooting up from the ice, and that's really cool. Again, seeing the previous Titans just get to have fulfilled the roles looks awesome. Like, that is so cool looking to see them all there like that, you know? I miss these guys. Otherwise, you know, they all work together. They stop, or they're working together to contain John's power. And meanwhile, Tim Drake is about to fade out of this timeline. He's not able to stick in it. And so he's like telling his moment of redemption is his sacrifice, where he tells everyone to funnel the energy Superboy's putting out directly to him, since he's fading into the time stream, and so the energy can be dispersed there with no harm. So he gets, you know, the heroic sacrifice redemption moment. At least ideally. There's still another part of this left, so we'll see what happens with that. And he falls into the time stream. Something I kind of like that they did is they have kind of famous panels of redemption and just weird continuity stuff. So you see, like, Parallax over... I can never do this. The screen's backwards for me. You see, like, Parallax over here, a bunch of other stuff. Robert Emmett says, Savior is a dumb name and dumb costume. Fair, but I don't care. You see, like, Crisis, Superman holding Supergirl and stuff. So I kind of like that. That's a neat little send-off for him. I'm assuming he's going to come back, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. Again, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's certainly not great either, but it's just not what I was really hoping for. You know, you see future Damian, and that just writes itself, you know? It just seems like a crime that we did not get to see future Damian meet, you know, Superboy and his past self and just deal with that, because that would have been great. That being said, everyone is still written in character, I feel. The future Titans don't do a ton, but they show up in the middle of a crisis, so they're just like, oh, we've got to act right now. We've just got to, there's no time to have big conversations or great character moments. We just got to do our shit. So, you know, that was fine. This is a very continuity-heavy book. I couldn't, in good conscience, give this to someone who doesn't know shit about DC continuity. Because, like, to be fair, I don't know a ton about the previous Titans. You know, like, I know of them, and I know of their importance to the other, to how, in regards to how they affect the other characters. But I don't know shit about them, personally. Like, you know, honestly, I don't know a damn thing about Cassie, Wonder Girl. I don't even know her last name. Like, they give it to me here, and I was like, wait, that's her last name? Really? I was not prepared for that in the slightest. So I don't know a ton of these about these characters, and I don't know how well they're written here, but they act heroically. They show up in the middle of a crisis, and they help solve it instead of, like, bickering or just going on and on. So I feel that's effective writing, if nothing else. Cassie Sandsmark. Yeah, I don't know shit about her as Wonder Woman, or Wonder Girl, or whatever. Connor Kent I know, and Bart Allen I know of a little bit more, but not a ton. So, you know, whatever. I thought it was effective. I thought it worked well. Not in love with it by any means. And there's still one more issue, so future Damian could very well show up. I feel like that was a really, really hard... Not hard move. I felt that was a bit of a dirty-handed move to show future Damian and not have him be affecting the story at all. Or not seriously affecting the story. And maybe he still will. There's still a chapter left, and it will be in the Super Sons book proper, so maybe they're saving it for the conclusion. To have him show up, and I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know how he's going to act. See, like, I hate to speculate, because I'm afraid I'm going to speculate something that's going to be better than whatever we actually get. Because at this point, if he were to show up, what I think the most interesting thing to do with him would be is he shows up and he's touting the exact same line that evil Tim Drake was touting, which is John Kent can't control his power. He killed millions of people in the future. I can't let that happen again, so I've come back to kill him. And that'd be really interesting since Damien, as a child, is the one so harshly defending John Kent. And a lot of that seems to be because of his feelings towards Tim Drake. That whole sibling rivalry thing he's got going on with the other Robins. So just, like, that would be great to see John and young Damien have to deal with future Damien as a villain. Because I think future Damien is a terrible Batman, and that's the point. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe he'll just show up and they'll get cookies and milk and I'll think it's adorable. Who knows? Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to The Flash number 38, which I picked up by request from Jacob Carlson. Picked this up because Scott Kolins was doing the art, and I like Scott Kolins' Flash when he was working with Jeff Johns, so I thought it'd be worth it to check out again. And yeah, it still has a very Scott Kolins look. You can definitely tell that he's evolved and he's doing the Rebirth costumes and all that stuff, but it still looks good. Still looks damn good. This was a weird issue to pick up. I probably should have just waited for the next issue. Did they tell you what the name of the story arc's going to be? Next, The Flash number 700, Perfect Storm, Part 1. Yeah, I probably should have just waited for the next issue. Assuming Scott Kolins is going to be doing the art for that as well. You guys in the comments, do you think that I should pick up The Flash continuing on here? Because, like, the strength of this story alone really didn't interest me that much, but I'll do it if you guys want me to, because I was picking up Aquaman for a while, so I need something to fill that spot. I could pick it up for the next story arc if you guys want. Just let me know in the comments, live or otherwise. But this was interesting, like, just seeing the Flash get the shit kicked out of him by Captain Cold was really cool. I like this little moment of dialogue that they have together where Cold's talking about how his father would always beat the shit out of him and his sister, and then when he got sober, he'd beg for forgiveness, and they'd forgive him, but just tell him to, but then he'd get drunk and do it again, and Flash is like, "You're not your father." He's like, "Damn right. I'll never ask for forgiveness," and just keeps cracking the shit out of Barry. I think that is a great opening scene. There's no denying that. That is a fantastic opening. Anyway, Godspeed, who's a character I'm unfamiliar with. I think he might be an original character for Rebirth by Williamson, but don't quote me on that. He ends up betraying the Rogues to help Barry. And then there's like a whole thing with exploding cold guns and Kid Flash and Copperhead and blah, 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 blah. And there's a murder that Captain Cold committed and blamed... What's his name? Turbines. Blamed the murder on Turbines. It's just like a whole thing. Warden Wolf from John's run is involved, and there's just like a lot of continuity stuff that I don't know about going on here. But to be fair, I didn't feel like super lost. I felt like what I needed to know is presented in the story itself. So by that whole every comic book is somebody's first comic book, I mean, I got to see Barry Allen fight Captain Cold and save Kid Flash and somebody from a bomb and you know, solve a crime as Barry Allen. It's fine. It worked. It's an effective story for just reading one issue. It's a very effective conclusion. I feel like a lot of plot threads are wrapped up really nicely here, or cut off really nicely here. So that's good. I don't know what the hell's going on here at the end with Barry at his mother's grave with Iris, but it's whatever. Overall, I'm not, like, super impressed with this or anything, but it worked. It just worked, kind of thing. This is all it's coming down to for me. But, again, I bought it for Scott Kolins art, and it's very pretty. It is incredibly pretty. I've not seen the Godspeed costume, but, like, when we get to see it here, I thought it looked... Or not even see the full costume, just a part of it. I thought the head looked really cool. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Yeah, I thought the design for the helmet looked pretty cool. It kind of looked like a neat little merging of, like, the Jay Garrick helmet with the, like, Flash cowl thing. Like the full Flash cowl that they've done a couple times. So I thought that was pretty neat. Otherwise, you get some cool action shots here, and I just think it looks neat. Like, Scott Kolins just knows how to visualize motion really well for the Flash, and it always looks really cool. So, you know, that's great. Beautiful stuff there as he takes out all the... Like, I like this. You see the Flash take out all the rogues in one page. That's awesome. I like that. I don't know how much sense this makes, but somehow it's cold enough in this room that Captain Cold is fighting the Flash in for the Flash's speed to be ineffective, for him not to be able to tap into the Speed Force. But yet Captain Cold's fighting him shirtless. I don't know how much sense that makes. Like, I don't know if there's been some kind of change to Captain Cold's biology to the point where he can, like, take sub-zero temperatures and not just dish them out, but I don't know. I'm a sucker for word balloons on covers, so this was, like, a really cool cover that is not at all what happens in this. Like, the way this cover works is like, oh man, that's really... Like, is Barry Allen unhinged and now going, like, too far and taking out the villains? And that's not at all what happens in this issue. I don't know if that's been maybe the context for the story arc or something, but that's not at all what happens in this issue. But it's a cool cover. Yeah. That'll do it for The Flash. Let's go ahead and talk about Mr. Miracle, number 6. So this is a surprisingly light issue. Not tonally. Tonally, it's all over the place. But as far as just like what happened in this issue, Barda and Scott burn the bodies of the new God Guards who came to arrest Scott and take him to his execution. They talk about renovating the apartment, a conversation which carries almost through the entire issue. And they break into High Father's lair on New Genesis to confront Orion. That's the whole issue. Just them going through all these defenses in High Father's lair to confront Orion. And then when they get there, spoilers, Darkseid is present. Or is he? Is kind of the lingering question. So yeah. I really like the conversation that Barda and Scott have throughout this as they go through all these ridiculously elaborate scenarios trying to get through the defenses on New Genesis. This is like a really great sequence where there's the forever void. No one will cross the forever void, and yet they're crossing it on the guts of some sea monster from an earlier room, and you know Scott's just walking a tightrope, all awkward as fuck, and Barda's swinging like she's on monkey bars. So I thought that was a really cool scene, and I like the tone of their conversation. And I think it's pretty much all summed up what the point of this conversation is. If I can just find that section of it. Basically, what it all comes down to is if you are trapped by a thing and you're doing something in reaction to the thing, then you're still in the trap, even if you're out of the trap. Okay, here's Barda's line. The opposite is true too. You can overreact to your childhood. Like me with the clothes and the things. You grew up in a box, you want to escape the box, but if you're escaping the box, then you're still in the box. You're not in the box, Scott. You've got nothing to escape. You can handle a smaller living room. I like that. The idea that when you are... How to put this? You are your memories, right? You are defined by what your experiences were. There's no way around that. Like, if you go through a thing, that is forever a thing that you went through. Now, the question is, what do you do with that? How do you let that affect you? So, I come home one day and my apartment has been ransacked. It's been broken into and someone has stolen all the things I hold most precious, like my comic books and my wedding ring and all this other stuff. Someone has stolen from me. They have invaded my space. How do I react to that? What do I do with that? If I were to rebuy everything and get the most expensive locks and put out, like, call every local pawn shop and see what they've gotten and put out a hit on anyone who's breaking into apartments and selling these specific items and get that person arrested or whatever brought in, then I've, in a way, some people may call that being proactive and making sure that you won't let that happen to you again, which surely that is one way to look at it, but that is a ridiculous overreaction, is it not? In a way, I am letting the robbery define the rest of my life, because fact of the matter is, I'm probably not going to be able to find everything that was stolen from me. I'm probably never going to be able to find the person, and I've never been... I have actually been stolen from. I parked my car out in my mother's driveway when I was living with her one night, and the one time I forgot to lock it, someone broke in and stole my PSP and a knife that I'd had for a long time. And that I filed a police report and never heard anything back, and that was the end of it. But, I try better to lock my car. So that has, in a way, defined me. But it hasn't overridden my life. Like, I don't freak out, wake up at 3 a.m, go check to make sure my car is locked and that no one's around it. I don't let it rule over me. But that is a very minor, non-dramatic thing. The whole idea of my entire house being ransacked would be a much more traumatic event. So the greater the event, the more it affects you, and the more that it affects the way you do with things. So if you're in a trap and you've escaped the trap, but now you're living in such a way to reaffirm to yourself how you've escaped the trap. If you were in a box your whole life and then you get out and you go buy a farm and you go live in a big, wide, open area, as a reaction to that, you're still contained. Part of you is still in that box. You're letting yourself still be in that box. You're still trapped because you've let that so define you that now you can't be in a small area. So I find that really interesting. The other obvious place to go to talk about this would be Batman, right? Here's someone who had a traumatic thing happen to him at a very young age, in DC, obviously Batman's not real, hate to burst his bubble, who had a very traumatic thing happen to him at a very young age, and let that define his entire life. So, that's how you live in what you do in relation to the things that happen to you is an effect. So you can be okay with living with being defined in some ways by a thing, or you can do more. You can try to change your life and be okay with those things that happen to you. It's not a choice. It's an act of defiance. You're never able to really get away from it. That's kind of the whole thing. But you can choose to be aware of its effects on you, or you can choose to ignore them. So I think that's an interesting branch of conversation. And I really like the way that it develops here, in that the reason Bart is having all these conversations about changing the way that they're living, and the reason she wants to. So like they're in the middle of fighting Light Ray, and Barda finally brings up the real reason she's talking about wanting to remodel the condo that they live in. And she says, "Scott, I'm pregnant." And I love this reaction that Scott has to it. Barda goes and she kicks the shit out of Light Ray, and then Scott just comes running up and hugs onto her, and he's like, "I love you," and she says, "I believe you, Scott-free." And that sounds like a very cold reaction. It's not. It's in reference to an earlier part of the conversation that goes throughout the whole book. So I think that's really interesting, the context of why she's talking about wanting to change the way in which they're living as being defined by the way in which they grew up, because she's realizing, in thinking about being pregnant, she is realizing that she doesn't want to pass on these anxieties, this baggage from her childhood onto her child, onto their child. I really, really like that. That's a really smart, really clever way to write the thing. I really like the way that works. And then it gets dark as shit and fucked up and fucking shit and balls and fucking shit and balls. Damn it. Why? Like, it's like he wants you to fucking... Tom King! Why? So Scott goes to confront Orion, and as soon as Scott's alone, we get the distortion effect, and he sees Orion's body, and he just says, "What did you do? What did you do?" looking up. And interesting, he's of course looking at Darkseid, who's on the next panel. But I like that he looks at you, the reader, because on some level you were responsible for this, for continuing to read. So you flip the page, and you get Darkseid does not do. Darkseid is. And then there's a boom tube. That is just really hard to read and comprehend, because you never see Scott and Darkseid on the same panel. Throughout this entire run, it's been suggested that Scott is mentally unstable. Orion has straight up accused Scott of being possessed by Darkseid, by the anti-life equation. And Scott is the only one in the room after Darkseid killed Orion. And I do think you can definitively say Darkseid killed Orion. It's just whether or not Darkseid physically did it himself, or if he acted through Scott. Especially with a line like, Darkseid does not do, Darkseid is. So the question is Scott free? I'm gonna say that slower. The question is, comma, is Scott free? Question mark. Is Scott committing acts of his own free will, or is he an agent of Darkseid? Man. Ouch. Why you gotta do this, Tom King? What did I ever do to you? Huh? What the fuck did I ever do to you, Tom King? Oh. And that ends the issue. Apparently there's a bit of a kerfuffle with this issue on Comixology. Because these last 2 pages just weren't there. It just ends with Scott going off to the to confront Orion. So we'll see how that shakes out. I can't imagine what reading this would have been like without that reveal at the end. But damn. Youch. Anyway. Darkseid is. And the worst part is, I think we're taking a month or 2 off of this book because Mitch Gerads needs time to catch up. Because he took some time off when he had a kid. Which is totally fine and understandable. God damn it, Mitch Gerads, what the hell are you doing? There's a lot of playing with panels that we get in here. And I like the way Mitch Gerads draws stuff. It's really, really effective drawing, and I quite like it. Like, they walk into this room, and it says that the room's going to slowly come in and crush them, you know, trash compactor from Star Wars kind of thing. And I like that the panel borders just start taking over, because that's commentary in and of itself. But then, the thing I really like is Barda's reaction to being told they're going to be crushed by the ceiling of this room. So she just starts stretching, getting ready for it. She just pulls a you know, just get some of these in there. It just starts like bracing up the fucking room. That's pretty cool. It's oh man, legs are a little sore now. That's just a really cool moment. God, I'm loving Big Barda. This series is selling really well, and I don't do a lot of figure collecting. I mean, I do more than none, but I don't do a lot of figure collecting. I may have to get me a Big Barda figure from this series if they do something, because God, this would make me like Big Barda and Scott Free so much. Like, I've always kind of, you know, like, I've known of them, and I thought they were cool characters and stuff like that. This is really, really making me fall in love with both of them. Anyway. Mitch does some great art in here. Again, really effective. I like there's some nice minimalism, some really cool action in here, too. That's the thing, is, like, this sounds like kind of a boring book, quote-unquote, because, oh, it's just a bunch of talking. And, yeah, it is just a bunch of talking and a bunch of, you know, futzing around, around, like, a central theme, a central point. But it's not like it does... I like the way he's drawing, like, blood in the water. Crazy, trippy colors, too. Alright. Let's go ahead and move along. Take a quick break. Check out what people are talking about in the comments. Oh, Jake Carlson's here. He's talking about a Black Widow movie's finally announced. About damn time. I wonder if, a top grossing Wonder Woman movie had something to do with that. Let's see here. Yeah, just conversation about that. So, hey Jake, I already talked about Flash, so sorry, bro. You can go check that out later, I suppose. All right. Let's go ahead and move along to Daredevil number 597. Oddly enough, I got 2 Charles Soule books to talk about tonight, so that'll be kind of fun right in a row. This is interesting, and I do like the turn of having, okay, it's the Trump era, so now the hot, H-A-W, hot thing to do now in comics is have a bad guy be in a elected or leadership position because people have been lied to and stuff, or they've let their fear take control of them. I'm waiting for the Sinestro origin book. We could really use that right now. So that's the hot thing on the streets. That's what the kids are saying now, right? Hot. Oh my God, you're so hot, Thor. That's always been my take on Natalie Portman's portrayal of Jane Foster in the first Thor movie. Anyway, so what is Charles Soule doing with Kingpin as the mayor of New York City to make that different? Well, he's actually trying to work on some of what the bare bones political strategy would be for someone in this position. Oddly enough, writers are having such a hard time making complex villains in this day and age because the real life villains are just so fucking stupid. No, that was not at all a thinly veiled reference to Donald Trump, I promise. So, instead of just making this Trump 2.0, but in the comics, Charles Soule is having Kingpin be kind of clever about it. So he's invited Matt Murdock to be his deputy mayor. And Charles Soule actually did used to be a lawyer. I don't know if he was a lawyer in New York, but I thought this little exchange of dialogue was really interesting. Because I didn't know this, so I feel educated. So Foggy Nelson shows up to talk to Matt and he says, "My first thought when I heard about this deputy mayor stuff was that you were planning to kill the Kingpin and take over the city. But then I looked up the rules of secession and, yup, deputy mayor doesn't take over if the regular mayor's incapacitated. It's the public advocate. I never get to be mayor. You want to know why? Deputy mayor isn't an elected office. I'm gonna fuck this name up. Fiorello LaGuardia created the position back in the 1940s so he'd have someone to go to parties and attend ceremonies for him. Back then it was just a figurehead thing. Seems like it still is, buddy." That's pretty good. I'm reasonably impressed that, to be fair, I'm taking that as truth. I haven't done research, but that sounds like a real thing. I remember at one point in the show The West Wing, there was a senator wanted to have a bill put forward a bill to introduce an American monarch to fill the same role that the Queen of England does, which is just ceremony and pomp and circumstance, so the president can actually do his goddamn job, because she was tired of being rescheduled meeting after meeting after meeting with the president because he kept having to go do, the pomp circumstance kind of event stuff. So, that sounds like a real thing that would happen at some point. So I just like that general approach that Soule is doing is Matt is here as a figurehead. He has been brought in as a manipulation to and Kingpin straight says it to one of his guys or whatever, that Matt Murdock is here because here we can keep him distracted and give him windmills to go charge at. To give him windmills to go charge at so that he's not a problem as opposition. I don't know, that's fairly clever. I feel like that's kind of some of the stuff that different people who were advisors in the early days of the Trump administration were kind of put in. Like, first of all, fuck Elon Musk, but Elon Musk was a Trump advisor because his whole thing is, at least if I'm in the White House, I can have a seat at the table and try to do something. No, fuck you, Elon Musk. But still, I understand that reasoning. Still, fuck you. just generally, fuck you, Elon Musk. If you ever wonder, fuck Elon Musk. Anyway, so I don't know. That's reasonably. It's a clever take on something that I don't think's being explored enough. But anyway, so. Daredevil's put in kind of just a shit situation, doesn't really know what to do, or is trying to figure out something to do. Meanwhile, he's also on the streets trying to, still be Daredevil to, like, quote-unquote, not let Fisk win, but he can't even trust the people of the city, even the ones he saves, because of how big the reward for him is. And then the big reveal at the end is that the Inhumans are helping out Matt Murdock because there's an escaped serial killer called Muse that this serial killer makes art. And he's out and after Daredevil. So we'll see how this goes. Certainly interesting. Certainly of the better quality of Charles Soule's writing. Like, honestly, and this is going to be an interesting transition here, these two things do not feel like they are written by the same guy. So let's go ahead and go on to Darth Vader number 10. And so yeah, if you're reading this and you like the quality of writing in this, go read Daredevil because it's much better and it's by the same writer. Anyway, so what does Jocasta Nu do with her cool lightsaber rifle? She tries shooting Darth Vader 2 more times and it doesn't work. And then it fizzles out and destroys her lightsaber. Just kind of like a cool shot to see just like a melting lightsaber. And I guess it shows you why the Jedi don't use these things. It's a neat idea for a weapon, though. Like, I kind of like seeing just the way it looks as it just shoots a big-ass beam of light. It's weird because it just works like a blaster from this image. What I was really hoping is that it was just going to be like a lightsaber extender. Like, it just makes a huge-ass lightsaber that you can destroy the whole fucking building with. Live comments. Y'all gotta come here for the live comments. Why is Darth Vader not as good as Daredevil? It's because Charles Soule used to be a lawyer, not a Jedi. Good job, Akuma Ranger. I see you. I see you with the live comments. But no, just like, I don't know, the idea of a lightsaber extender seemed much more interesting to me than a blaster converter. Oh well, so be it. Anyway, the thing's about to blow up, so she tries throwing it at Vader. Vader throws it back at her. There's a standoff with stormtroopers. The stormtroopers shoot at her, then they start shooting at Vader because he's got a lightsaber. And then the stormtroopers show up and get Vader to stop being shot at, and Vader's pissed that they shot at him, so he kills the command stormtrooper, starting a rich tradition of Vader choking the shit out of military personnel. Anyway, I do like this moment, though it does feel, again, just, it feels like fan fiction, man. It really does. There's no getting around. Like, even when I like it, I'm like, that is not feel like something a professional writer should do. Jocasta Nu is cornered by stormtroopers, and Darth Vader won't let them kill her, and she knows she's about to be taken prisoner, so she decides to commit suicide, and she says, I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me, and tries to, like, fall back into the chasm of Coruscant, but then she's stopped by Darth Vader, who uses the Force to grab her as she screams, no! Anyway. Just the like, I am one with the Force and the Force is with me. Yes, we've been saying that for decades. Decades and centuries. That's been a Star Wars line. And now someone's going to comment, actually, in the old Legends book, issue number 712, they actually do say that line. Yeah, sure, fine, fuck it, they do. You know who said that line? Donnie Yen in Rogue One. Alright, let's not kid ourselves. I don't care if it was said somewhere else. Donnie Yen said that fucking line. That line is from Rogue One. End of conversation. And that's what this is, of course, a reference to. And it feels so... Nudge! 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 Like, it is so forced. Forced. Anyway. So, like, on the way to go take her to be interrogated by Palpatine, Vader looks at some information she has and realizes that she has the names of children born Force sensitive, and that obviously Palpatine wants these names. And I like this moment from Jocasta Nu. She's like, Palpatine ordered you to keep me alive, that's clear, and you don't even know why, you poor deluded boy. I suspect it was that list. As Chancellor, he knew we kept it, and knew the Seekers would have entrusted it to me. He wanted it, and the reason is clear. He wants to make more of you. Which begs the question, what do you want, boy? And then I really like this next moment. As a stormtrooper comes up, he's like, do you want me to stun her, sir? I'd be more than happy to stop those Jedi lies. And, like, I love her reaction when she goes, Jedi? You idiot. You don't even know who you're supposed to hate. You're taking orders from a Jedi. This man is Anakin Skywalker, a Jedi Knight. And, like, the clone troopers just look at him and Vader just tosses them all out the fucking ship. That's really cool. That was your doing. They chose their own paths. And me, what becomes of me? Ah, so be it. I don't know, that's, like, it's a cool ending scene. Again, the thing I'm having with it is, most of this book was action, then a cinematic, and then we're getting ready for the next mission. Again, this continues to feel like a video game, like a decent Vader video game, but a video game nonetheless, not an actual comic book story. And then we get a, last little remnant of hope as the library, the archive that Jocasta Nu set up before she left, is rediscovered decades later by none other than young Luke Skywalker. Meh, that's okay. I can live with it. It would have been kind of cool if, like, I hadn't even known, like, they wouldn't let the comics do this, of course, but it would have been kind of cool if, like, she was storing this information at the first Jedi Temple. That'd have been neat. Anyway. just an okay issue. Again, like, just the quality of writing, though, between these two things is so damn vast. And that is crazy. Like, you get one that, like, feels like it's actually legitimately thought out, and it's got a lot of pathos to it, and it feels like it's weaving a really complicated story. And then you've got one where it's like, ooh, I'm gonna put in this reference. Really? Really? Alright, last book of the night is Wonder Woman, number 38. So I've been no fan of what James Robinson's been doing with Wonder Woman lately. It has been rough to get through his first story arc, but we're starting a new story arc. So let's throw James Robinson just a huge bone. How fucked, like, how much would your guys' minds be blown if I actually had just a gigantic, like, cow bone sitting under the desk and I just, like, threw it that way? Anyway, let's throw him a huge bone and say that he had to tell the Darkseid's daughter, Wonder Woman's brother story. He had to tell it as part of, like, the DC editorial. I don't understand why such an established writer as James Robinson, who did Starman, I didn't realize that's who I was talking about until I started complaining on Twitter. I didn't realize it was such a well-established writer as James Robinson, why he would have to do a story like that, why DC would mandate a story like that. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that, like, since DC wants Mr. Miracle to be in continuity and Tom King wants to use Darkseid but doesn't want to have to set up, you know, baby Darkseid and bring Darkseid back, and doesn't want baby Darkseid in his Mr. Miracle book because that'd be distracting as fuck, let's just say, for the sake of argument, the DC editorial was like, hey, we need someone to get rid of baby Darkseid and age him back up to proper age Darkseid. Can someone do it? And James Robinson's like, yeah, I'll do that real quick in this Wonder Woman arc. Okay, while you're there, can you fuck around with Wonder Woman's brother? Fine. So let's just say that's what's going on, and that now he's actually starting this Wonder Woman run by giving us a villain. So the origin for this villain is kind of interesting, but also, I'm afraid, still verges on the idea that maybe James Robinson just doesn't get Wonder Woman that much. So we have this character who we see at the very beginning is crushed underneath a piece of rubble. Wonder Woman saves her from some nobody villain and escorts her to the hospital. Goes with her helicopter to the hospital, and even though her legs are never going to work again, she's never going to be able to walk again, Wonder Woman stays with her, and they keep in touch, and they become friends, and, like, Wonder Woman even poses for her as she starts to get back into art, and draws the two of them together in her own little comic book. Lots of cute stuff. I really like this line, since the narration for this is done through the little girl's diary, or not little girl, the girl's diary. My name is Vanessa Captilis, and I'm Wonder Woman's best friend. So you see all this stuff happen, but then Wonder Woman stops coming around so much, right around the time that she gets this life-changing technological surgery where her body is injected with nanites that are fusing with her spinal column. My apologies. Her body is injected with nanites that are fusing with her spinal column and allowing her to walk, blah, 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 fake science, blah, 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 blah. And so right around when she's learning to do that, Wonder Woman stops coming around. And right around the time Wonder Woman stops coming around, the girl's mom dies in a freak accident. So she's feeling obviously very depressed and really down, and she's actually not able to walk anymore. Just as she was starting to progress, she's actually not able to, because sadly her mother died, and it took all of her will and concentration away from being able to work with the nanites to allow herself to walk. And so she's really down, really depressed, and just constantly watching the news for signs of Wonder Woman, since Wonder Woman's apparently too busy for her. And she sees that Wonder Woman is with this family that she just saved, and this family's not broken. The mother isn't dead. The child isn't injured. And she's pissed. Then we cut to just a scene that is entirely too long of Wonder Woman and her brother Jason discussing his party antic ways, and she's like, hey, you need to take this stuff seriously if you want to be a hero, because you can't do shit like this because it could end really badly for you. And I'm not saying you have to be a hero, but you told me what you wanted, and so I'm not saying we can't, hang out, but if you want to be in my life, if you want to be a part of my life in this way and being a hero, you've got to change for it. Which is like the most they've talked to each other. Like, this is, we're, 4 or 5 issues into Robinson's run on Wonder Woman. This is the most Wonder Woman has talked in the entire series. So that's good. Anyway, she gets a call from Steve Trevor, something about the family she rescued. Needs to talk to her, so she rushes over to their house and finds some dead bodies, and then here's a voice from around the corner. They're nobody's, darlings, now, and they'll be saying the same of you when I'm done. My name is Vanessa No, my name is Silver Swan, and I'm Wonder Woman's worst enemy. So, that's a really cool design for a supervillain costume, rather. I can't deny that looks really cool, given Wonder Woman, this technological villain that's got, a real personal attachment and vendetta against Wonder Woman is pretty cool. It's a tragic backstory. I like that side of it. I don't know if James Robinson really gets Wonder Woman. We just spent a whole arc where Wonder Woman barely did anything. And now we get this issue where she doesn't do much but give a lecture and not visit a little girl in the hospital. Or, not a little girl, because this is obviously not a little girl. Doesn't visit someone in the hospital, doesn't visit someone that she cares about after their mother dies. And certainly the idea, these superheroes get busy, they can't be everywhere at once, they have their own lives. Wonder Woman's been dealing with a lot of complicated shit lately. Fair, but, still, really? Really, though? Really? That's just so out of character for Wonder Woman to me. And it's not, extremely out of character or anything. It's just, it's a big gimme. Steve and I have talked about this. Every story needs some level of, okay, just give it this. Just suspend your disbelief to this degree. And then look at what it's trying to do. And you could still say that that's too much suspension of disbelief, but just look at what it's trying to do before you harp on it for how it got there. A good example of that, in Age of Ultron, when the helicarrier showed up. Yeah, logically, with S.H.I.E.L.D. being dismantled and everything, that doesn't make a ton of sense, but with what he was trying to say there, and the idea of, the government should work to save people, not to control them, stuff like that. That's a better message. That's worth the gimme. I'll give it to you. Having a villain, this whole issue, this whole arc possibly looks like it's just trying to set up a new rogue for Wonder Woman. Here's the thing about Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman doesn't really have a rogues gallery. Like, yeah, there's Cheetah, and there's Giganta, there's Dr. Psycho. Dr. Poison. She doesn't have an extensive rogues gallery. Like, you gotta really work to think of Wonder Woman villains. And because part of the point of Wonder Woman is she's nice to people. She forgives people. She works with people. She wants to save people. And to have a character like this that's obsessed with Wonder Woman for not coming to visit her, just again, that's a huge gimme, but I'll give it to you just for the sake of it. Unless you plan to have this be her one and only story arc, this is not a good setup for a villain, because Wonder Woman's going to visit this girl. That's just what's going to happen. I don't know. Did not seem like a good idea to me. Did not seem like really well thought out or anything. Interesting idea. Needed more work. This is a good first draft. Stuff like that is kind of my reaction. Kuma Ranger says, why not just use Greek mythology as a base for the Rogues Gallery? Go read the New 52 run, because that's exactly what that is. This is just... I really want to like Wonder Woman right now. Like, I want Wonder Woman to be a good book. And this just has all the hallmarks of feeling like just as much filler compared to the last arc. Like, even giving him the bone that, oh, the whole arc was just a big like mandate from editorial, and he just did the best he could with it. It was still way overwritten and took way too many issues to get anything done. This has the hallmark of feeling the same way. Like, we spend a lot of time in this character's past, and we spend a lot of time just in a conversation between Jason and Wonder Woman. Or, as I'm now calling him, Jason Woman, because that's amusing to me. I can't take credit for that. Someone said that online, and it made me laugh. But yeah, I'm not impressed. Just not impressed. Sorry, James Robinson. I've heard great things about you in the past, but this is not good first-hand experience. Oh well. Anything to say about the art? Because I did think the art was good. Emanuela Lipacchino did the art on this, with Ray McCarthy on the inks. I thought the art looked really good. Like, it looks consistent with a lot of what's been going on in Wonder Woman's Rebirth book. Like, this looks a lot like some of the stuff Liam Sharp was doing back when Rucka was on the book and stuff like that. So, it looks consistent, and that's cool. And I like what Liam Sharp's doing, so I like what's going on here, too. I think it looks good. And as far as just design-wise, I think it's interesting to give Wonder Woman this villain, Silver Swan, especially since this character talks about being inspired by ballet because she couldn't do it anymore, and so she designed herself a costume that looked like Swan Lake and reminded her of Swan Lake and stuff. And so I thought, this is a cool way to, it's a cool design for a villain costume, if nothing else. And I even like the idea behind how she's able to generate the costume. I like the idea of a disabled villain kind of thing. I think that's a neat way to merge those things, because yeah, why isn't that more of a thing? Something else that did that was Dr. Octopus in Ultimate Spider-Man, the cartoon. Dr. Octopus, I'm pretty sure he was paraplegic in that, where he didn't have any use of his actual limbs, hence the tentacle arms. So that's a cool idea for a villain, if nothing else, but it's just not very well thought out introduction, in my opinion. Okay, that's gonna do it for the single issues. I'll answer one question I just got here in the live comments. Ian, what's your idea of a well-introduced villain? Like how to introduce a villain well, or what is an example of a villain that was introduced well? Because I could talk about either. I'm just not quite sure what you mean by that. Because I do feel like that was, a good introduction on some levels, just not for Wonder Woman. That just doesn't feel like a Wonder Woman thing, Like, if Wonder Woman wanted to wean this girl off of her so this girl doesn't feel dependent on Wonder Woman coming by every week, because obviously she couldn't do that, Wonder Woman would just be better about doing that. I'm sorry. It's a big gimme. I'll leave it at that. I don't know. Well-introduced villain. I think the best way to introduce a villain is just have them show up and start doing a thing. I'm a big fan of show first, origin later. Dark Knight is a pretty good go-to example, where you just see how the Joker works before you understand why he's in the story at all, or before you get much context of why he's there and what he wants in that story, or before you get any background on the character, which of course you get none. And then the other thing would be how would I introduce a villain, or how do I think a villain should be introduced? Again, I'm a big fan of just letting it happen. Let's see here. The best I can think of is for just introducing a villain is a thing I did for Bill Zazubar forever ago. So you guys can just go listen to this and see how I do it. So Bill made a movie called The Werewolf of Carl Place. It was a short film he made, I think his first year of film school, if I'm remembering correctly. Or not a short film, it's like an hour and a half almost. And it's about introducing this idea for a character that Bill had called William Stone, who's a monster hunter, and just kind of like supernatural kind of thing. And for a while he wanted to turn it into like a proper universe and have other people write some William Stone stuff. And of course I'm the only one that did it. I'm the only one that wrote anything. Only one that wrote a word. So I wrote a short story called Strings that introduced a villain for William Stone to fight. Introduced, in some regards, a longer term villain. So you guys can go check that out. We actually did it as a what's the word? Radio play kind of thing. There's narration. So Bill narrates it. He's not the best voice actor in the world. It's not the best audio quality in the world, but you can go check that out. Sid Part 2, Strings, should be enough to bring it up. So if you really want to know how I write a villain, how I introduce a villain, that'd be my way to do it. I'm a big fan of just do it. Just have it happen. Backstory after the fact. So that's me. As far as if you want to do backstory before the fact, if you want to show the origin, go watch, because this is way too much to talk about and I just want to get to my damn book. go watch the trade talk I did on Birth of Venom. I'm gonna say it's Birth of Venom, if not Vengeance of Venom. Alternately, go watch the Geeky Gentleman on MCU Spider-Man possible plots, where we speculated on what the MCU could do with Spider-Man since they had just gotten him at the time of that recording. So plenty of stuff if you want to go see, like, my thoughts on how to introduce a villain via origin. And so I talk about that in regards to how I feel Venom should be introduced in stuff. So plenty of material there for you to go watch in other contexts. Hope that's enough, Philip. And for anyone else that was curious. So, if you listen to all of that and you don't want to go look it up yourself, leave a comment for the people after the fact. Leave a comment if it's not in the description of the video. Look in the description of the video first. Leave a comment and say, Ian, put those things in the description. And give me a timestamp so I can find out what exactly I told you to go look up. Thanks. All right. I'm done with my chat. I'm done with chat. We're going to go ahead and move along to trade talk now. Gotta frame it up for the introduction. All right, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Trade Talk. This week we were talking about Batman Roads to No Man's Land Volume 1. Again, I'm not going to so much happens in this that I'm not going to go through the ABC of the plot. And that's one of the things I really like about this book. It is just chaos. You are just dealing with so many different things. But while Cataclysm was about the overall decline, or the fast decline, the heart pumping, oh my god, and the just human tragedy of a natural disaster, and a little bit of the after effects of just dealing with what would this be like in a place like Gotham, this is where that stuff really starts to feel appropriate in what would Gotham do in reaction to this. So, let's go over some of the big things that happened in Cataclysm. Of course, the city's in ruins. A lot of villains have escaped from Blackgate. Arkham seems to still be in okay shape, though. But overall, there's a lot of chaos going on, and most of the buildings in Gotham that are not Wayne properties are completely destroyed and never coming back. And so that's kind of like all the context for what's going on here, where we've got villains roaming the streets, we've got gangs rising in power, we've got people who are desperate and turning to, obviously very extreme measures like looting and gangs. And then we've got Bruce Wayne trying to solve it all here. Quick note before I go on, I fucking love the way Mark Buckingham draws Batman. Look, it's so good. 90s Batman is my heroine. Man, I gotta give a lot of credit to the inker on that as well, though. Wayne Faucher, Faucher. But anyway, so you got just a lot of chaos and a lot of rampant, opportunism from very wrong elements. And meanwhile, Bruce Wayne is trying to save the city. This is interesting. There is an issue I do want to make sure I talk about a moment from Batman number 556, which is in this trade. Because in that issue, we just get a meeting at Wayne Enterprises as Bruce Wayne tries to, crisis manage, and just deal with the government side of not the government side, the civilian side of this tragedy, and I really like that about it. Okay, So here's just a absolutely fantastic scene as Bruce Wayne talks to Lucius Fox and a couple other members of Wayne Enterprises about the relief effort. Go ahead, Mr. Preston. Well, Mr. Wayne, as your head bead accountant, I feel it's my duty to make sure you're aware of the fiscal facts of life. Not only are profits suspended for the duration, but the drain on our financial reserves is, consider your duty done, Preston. Until this city is back on its feet, job performance will be judged by criteria other than profits. Sir, by the swift improvement of everyday life in Gotham. And speaking of which, carry on, people. You're doing fine. So there's just a great scene for all the Batman could do so much more with his money as Bruce Wayne than be Batman. I love that. You know, Wayne Enterprises is running low on profits. I don't give a damn about profits. Help the people. It's a good moment. Also, there's just like a lot of dark shit that happens in this book. That's just goddamn. Like, there's this moment where Bruce is trying to get to these group of people who are trapped in this upscale area, and they've been trapped there for 14 days. And you're like, 14 days? They're dead. They'd starve. But, you know, they're there, and they're like, yeah, we're going to draw straws because we're going to have to eat one of us. And so Batman's rushing there the whole time. They're sitting there debating about which one's going to get eaten and all this stuff. And then a fight breaks out and one of them dies. I just love the way this is visualized right here, as they all just black and beady little white eyes looking at the, you know, fresh meat. They look like predators there. That's great. But just in that moment is when Batman shows up. And I love his reactions. Like, don't be afraid. I'm here to help you get out. And this guy's just like, oh Lord, no, you're too late. I killed him for nothing. For nothing. And then I like this reveal that we get at the end. I believe this was Ralph Jones' apartment. Did he survive? Yes, he broke his leg, hit his head. He was unconscious. Where is he now? We killed him on the 7th day. They ate him. They ate out one guy already, and then they waited 7 days and we're going to eat another, and that's just how long it took Batman or anybody to get to them. And just, I like it because that's a really good tone setter, because I think that's the first or second issue in this. Yeah, it's the second issue in this. That and the first issue of Clayface and Mr. Freeze causing havoc in the city in the midst of all this chaos is just a really good tone setter for things are not getting better. The worst is not behind them. The quake has stopped. The ramifications are just beginning. That is just a really, really great... I love it. Anyway, so it just gives you a great sense of how desperate and how crazy things are getting, and how Bruce doesn't have the resources to deal with all of it. I really like this other moment where this building has just fallen right across a main street. It's just laying there, and the rich asshole who owns it is just pissy and whiny about how he's not making any money right now. And the city is like, we're going to have to demolish this building so we can get relief supplies through to other parts of the city faster. And he's like, no, don't you dare touch it. I'll file an injunction against the city. And Bruce is just pissed. So he just hops in a fucking bulldozer that's at the scene ready to take it down and just carves a hole straight through it himself. Just to try to get something done. So you really... in everybody, you are feeling the desperation. And I love this moment that he has with his parents. I vowed to protect the innocent. I promised that no one would suffer if I could do anything to stop it. I've lived these years to be a guardian to the entire city. But there's little I can do against disease and natural disasters. A lost cause can become a fool's errand. I'm still only human. I did what was humanly possible. I hope you don't think I've failed in my promise. and I renew that promise now to the graves of his parents. I really like that. In all honesty, this should have been the cover to Road to No Man's Land, as people are just realizing the hopelessness, and a number of them are straight abandoning the city throughout this volume, which I think is really, really interesting. And it's not just the people that are abandoning it, everyone's abandoning it. And this is an interesting commentary, since I know that Chuck Dixon is a conservative and a bit of a dickhead, from what I've gathered about him. Chuck, if you're watching, feel free to challenge me on that, and I'll throw your own words back in your face. But this is a weird commentary, because it's not all Chuck. There's Dave Monek and Alan Grant writing, and I don't know their political persuasion. But, like, all these corporations are leaving Gotham City, too, and they're not planning to rebuild. Wayne can't convince them. Wayne offers to help finance their rebuilding costs, to help get them back on their feet, because he knows the people of Gotham need a reason to stay, need hope, need something to do in Gotham. They can't just sit and wait for the buildings to go back up. They're going to need a reason to be here when they do. And so it's like, if everybody leaves, if major corporations leave, if no one can get a job, why would anyone stay in Gotham? And he realizes that. But even offering them literally everything, offering to essentially bankrupt himself, he can't convince them to stay. And that's just really interesting, you know? Because that is the very corporate thing to do. I've no doubt in my mind that if New York City was rocked by an earthquake overnight, every major corporation that's housed there, and a lot of the corporate employers there would get the fuck out of town. They wouldn't plan to rebuild. Hell no. They'd go somewhere else where it's safer. It's about minimizing risk. So, I don't know. How does a conservative writer feel about something like that? Just intriguing. Little things that pass through my head. So they're just gone. It's so interesting. Like, there's stuff with the Mad Hatter and all these other villains popping up, and I just don't care about that at all. What makes this interesting is all the social and political stuff that's happening behind the scenes with Bruce Wayne. And there's like a cloud of gas, blah, 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 darkness, city under threat, blah, 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 blah. Don't really care. Someone tries to break into Wayne Manor, and Alfred pulls a Die Hard, which is pretty cool. Huntress is in an issue. I don't even remember what happens in that. It's so nothing to me. A little girl convinces her not to kill someone in front of her face. That's nice. Montoya, like, this was weird. We get a whole issue of just, like, basically prose describing something that happened to her brother. I didn't really care for that one that much. There was one really, really good scene with Montoya and Bullock, though. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Here we go. So they go to stop some looters, and the looters just kind of rush past them, knock Montoya over, and Harvey Bullock's like, you alright, Montoya? Answer me, kid, are you hurt? No. Then what is it? Tell me, Renee. It's no use, Harv, no use at all. Hopeless. Snap out of it, Montoya. Greater numbers, they overwhelmed us, no big I recognized one of them, Harv. He was my cousin, and last spring I became a godmother to his daughter, but did he abandon her, or was he trying to feed her? God help me, Harv, but I don't even know if the little girl is still alive. you just get a real sense of just like how fucking hopeless it is in this extreme situation. And that is the best part about this, is just what would happen in something so dire as this. What would go down? And like the way they show the crime of Gotham City, which is in this time in DC, the highest crime rate in the nation, and obviously people will be opportunistic with that, especially as resources dwindle and the police are spread thinner and thinner and thinner. And you've shown just how dark it gets when Bruce Wayne goes to visit his parents' grave, and he finds grave robbers at another site. And he's just like, it's gotten to that point where it's just that damn dark. I think that's really, really effective writing. I think that is just a really, really great way to show just how it's not getting any better. And it just shows you by just having, nothing in this really feels that unbelievable. Like unbelievable for DC. Nothing feels like a stretch. Nothing in this feels like, oh, well, that would never happen. Like, that's just ridiculous to assume anything like that could happen. No, a lot of this feels very real. I haven't read up on the events post-Katrina in a long time, but I should probably do that, because I know there was a lot of, obviously a lot of crime, a lot of shit going down when that happened. So it'd be interesting to look into some of the darker side of what went down there when just something so horrific happened. And I really, really like this scene as you see why people are wanting to leave, because it's looking like they're not going to have a chance to get out. This is a great metaphor, by the way. They're all like rushing out of town any way they can get, even if it's on foot. And a number of them are on a suspension bridge leaving the city when it snaps, and they all drop and plunge into the rivers. That's a really great sense of, if you don't get out now, is there any guarantee you're going to be able to? And so it's fun to read this in a way, given how people were talking. When I was doing my live show last week, I skimmed over the comments after the fact on Cataclysm, and people were debating, is Cataclysm better than No Man's Land? And I think they're very different things. You just need one for the other. And people were debating, well, that would never happen. The government would never completely abandon a major American city like that. And I'm not entirely sure that's accurate. I mean, there are large sections of New Orleans that have never been properly restored. There's, some things are just left when they're that damaged. And we're not talking about, a couple buildings fell. Let's say Bruce Wayne owns a ridiculous number of buildings in Gotham. 25%. Bruce Wayne owns a fourth of the buildings in Gotham. 75% either fell or were so heavily damaged by the quake that fixing them is not an option. They'll have to be torn down and rebuilt from the ground up. That is still not unreasonable to assume that you could salvage that city. But on top of that, you have a population which has no interest in being there. So you have no working population that wants to be a part of the city anymore. You have no interest from employers. And keep in mind, this is America. Like, me, I'm my lefty commie bastard self. But keeping just in mind of real life American politics, you have no interest from employers in relocating to Gotham. And then on top of that, you've got gangs and supervillains roaming the streets, gaining more and more power, gaining more footholds. There's a great scene in here where Jim Gordon and Batman talk about the fact that the old mob is resurfacing in the chaos. The police are not going to be able to rebuild fast enough to keep up with them. And on top of that, other organized crime divisions from outside of Gotham are moving in now because there's so much opportunity for them. That's a lot of factors. If you can't guarantee the safety of people to come in and clear debris, how are you going to guarantee the safety of people to come in and build? If you can't guarantee the safety of people to come in and build, how are you going to get anyone to live there? The idea that the city would just be straight abandoned and left as a no man's land, especially in DC continuity right now, with Coast City having been destroyed by in the whole Zero Hour, the lead up to 0 Hour. Yeah, I reasonably buy that. I think that they make a good case in this volume for why this would be believable enough within the context of the DC universe. Real life, maybe not, but I don't know. You have the city with the greatest crime rate in the country, and it has now become just the Wild West for criminals, wherein police have no hope. You've got National Guard and humanitarian aid there, and the situation is still damn hopeless for the people. And you can say, yeah, well, that's a mischaracterization of what rescue efforts would be like. Fair. I'd say look at what's happening in Puerto Rico right now. Maybe I should put a link for people to go donate to Puerto Rico. That'd probably be a good idea. It's 6 months without power almost? No, 3 months without power. That's a problem. Sour thing to talk about. Sour note to end on there, isn't it? I actually don't want to end there. Let me see if I can find something else to end on. Oh, everyone say hi to Haley in the background. I don't know. There's a lot going on in this. Oh, let me talk about something I hate, because you guys always seem to enjoy that. So I have been on record as saying that the best thing Stephanie Brown ever did was die. And I will stand by that, sir. I will stand by that hard. But here's why I find that character just intolerable. Because she just has so many moments where I'm like, oh, God, just die. And then when Black Mask killed her, I was like, thank you. But there's this moment where Robin, checks in on her and the other girl Tim Drake was dating at the time. I don't even remember her name. And she's like, so what did you come by to see me for? And he's like, actually, I didn't, believe it or not. You just happened to be here. And she's like, and he goes, okay, see ya. She's like, as if. Face it, Boy Wonder, you got a bad case of the Stephs. Just die! God, I cannot stand Stephanie Brown. You got a bad case of the Stephs. Well, where do I go to a doctor to get that taken care of, for Christ's sake? Ugh, that is the cringiest fucking line. And it's not even like, oh, that's not in character for her. You know that's in character for Stephanie Brown. Deep down, you know that's her. She's totally the kind of person that would say that. And it was written by Chuck Dixon, too, so take that. Okay. That'll do it for this week's episode of Trade Talk. Next week, I'll be back with The Road to No Man's Land, Volume 2. So, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, bye. And everyone else, thank you very much for watching this week's episode of Comic Reviews. How's the live chat doing? Can't find the trades for the No Man's Land event at my libraries. It does have the Road to the Cataclysm books. but not the main event for some reason. Wait, it has the Road to and Cataclysm. That's weird. You should just buy the trades then. But wouldn't Bruce lose his company if he didn't care about profit? That's what Lucius Fox is for. Wait, wouldn't the world be better off without Gotham? Yeah, that's kind of the context for why they're letting it die. Like, even the people of Gotham? Probably. Or would the criminals of Gotham keep Gotham alive? That's exactly what No Man's Land is. So we're getting there. I promise. Slowly but surely, we're getting there. All right, everyone, thanks very much for watching Comic Reviews. I'll talk at you later. Bye.